a name that has been written into essays by students across China, a solemn face printed on the title page of Chinese textbooks. You might think you already know enough about him. But what if I told you that the man known for his sharp words, as if wielding daggers and spears, once set aside all his pointed edges? Imagine him as an ordinary middle-aged man, sitting under a lamp, slowly recalling the afternoons of sneaking into the backyard brush to chase crickets as a child, remembering a nanny who, despite her lack of education, worked tirelessly to buy him a copy of the classic of mountains and seas, or reminiscing about a Japanese teacher in a foreign land who, ignoring national boundaries, earnestly helped him correct his homework. Wouldn't this person suddenly feel so much more real? This is the Lu Xun who wrote Dawn Blossoms Plucked at Dusk. In 1926, while being hunted by the warlord government and fleeing from Beijing to Xiamen during chaotic times, instead of penning fiery calls to arms, he turned inward to pick up long wilted blossoms from the depths of his memory. Today we're going to talk about this book, about those childhood fragments colored by the twilight of time, and explore the tenderness and sharpness hidden within. I'm Sunshine, and welcome to today's episode of Delusion. Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk contains 10 essays that together trace a complete timeline of Lu Xun's journey from childhood to youth. The starting point of this timeline is a backyard called Baichao Garden in Shaoxing, Zhejiang. This backyard is now a tourist spot, but in Lu Xun's childhood, it was his entire world: lush vegetable beds, smooth well stones, towering soapberry trees, and the purple-red mulberries. He flipped bricks to find centipedes, pulled up the roots of Chinese knotweed, listened to crickets chirping, and ran away from bees chasing him. That kind of unrestrained freedom, wildness, and joy free from adult interference is something everyone experiences in childhood but can never go back to. Yet the joy of Baichao Garden has an expiration date. Soon, his family sent him to Sanwei Study, a private school that required sitting properly and reciting ancient texts with solemnity and focus. The paradise turned into a classroom. Crickets were replaced by "Is Ren far away? I desire Ren, and Ren arrives." Lu Xun never explicitly said he hated Sanwei Study, but as you read, you can feel a subtle sense of melancholy from the contrast between unrestrained freedom and rigid discipline. It's not anger, it's the sorrow one feels as an adult looking back, sensing the inevitable end of childhood. On this timeline, some characters stand out vividly. The first is Chang Ma, the nanny in Lu Xun's family. She was uneducated, slept in a starfish position occupying the whole bed, obsessed with rules and superstitions, and insisted on saying congratulations, congratulations, and eating fortune oranges during the new year. When Lu Xun was a child, he honestly found her quite annoying. But this rough and clumsy woman somehow managed to buy him a set of the Shanhaijing, a book he had longed for. It was illustrated with creatures like beasts with human faces, snakes with 9 heads, birds with 3 legs. At this point in the essay, Lu Xun's writing suddenly becomes incredibly tender. He describes it as the first treasure book I ever received and cherished most deeply. A woman who couldn't read bought a book in the only way she knew how, meeting a child's longing for an unknown world. This clumsy love grew richer with time. The second character is Mr. Fujino. When Lu Xun studied medicine in Japan, he encountered this meticulous yet borderline rigid anatomy professor. Mr. Fujino dressed carelessly, with nothing but an old coat in winter, yet he corrected Lu Xun's lecture notes meticulously, marking even the slightest deviation in blood vessel diagrams with red pen. More importantly, during an era when Japanese people generally looked down on Chinese, Mr. Fujino never neglected Lu Xun because of his nationality. This respect and diligence transcending national prejudice stayed with Lu Xun for life. Later, Lu Xun abandoned medicine for literature, left Sendai, and never saw Mr. Fujino again. But he hung the professor's photo on the wall opposite his desk. Whenever he felt tired or tempted to slack off while writing at night, he would look up at that photo and regain the courage to continue. There's also a story involving his father. Lu Xun's father fell gravely ill, and the family hired several so-called renowned doctors. Their prescriptions were increasingly absurd, mandating paired crickets and sugarcane that had endured 3 frosts, as if they were joking. Little Lu soon ran all over the pharmacy yet couldn't gather those peculiar ingredients, watching helplessly as his father grew weaker under their useless remedies and eventually passed away. This experience directly influenced Lu soon's decision to study medicine in Japan, intending to save people like his father from quack doctors. Eventually, he discovered that spiritual ailments were even harder to cure than physical ones, prompting him to trade the scalpel for the pen. Look at the progression, from Baichao Garden to Sanwei study, from Changma to Mr. Fujino, from his father's illness to abandoning medicine for literature. Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk appears to be one person's memoir, yet beneath it lies the story of a soul pushed by its era toward awakening step by step. After sharing these stories, let's dig deeper. There are several aspects of Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk that deeply move me, which I believe reveal what Lu Xun truly intended to express but never explicitly stated. First, the concept of childhood itself. We often say, childhood is carefree, but Lu Xun's portrayal of childhood is never through a rosy filter. While Baichao Garden was indeed paradise, it was swiftly followed by the suffocating discipline of Sanwei study. While Changma was kind and warm, her superstition and ignorance were equally real. The Dragon Boat Festival was a festive celebration for children, yet the anticipation was frozen by his father's sudden demand to recite lessons just before departure, draining all joy before reaching the venue. Lu Xun's writing on childhood isn't for nostalgia. He's probing a question: how do our education, culture, and adult world gradually diminish a child's spirit? That little boy forced to study before enjoying the Dragon Boat Festival. How different is he from today's kids buried in endless tutoring classes, forced to replace rolling in grass with crammed schedules? A question Lu Xun posed in 1926 has lingered for nearly a century without a clear answer. We must pause to consider what Lu Xun was going through when he wrote this. It was one of the most tumultuous phases of his life. In 1926, the Beijing government orchestrated the March 18th massacre, and his student Lu Haizhen was shot during a protest. Lu Xun himself was listed as a wanted man. Fleeing Beijing, he took refuge in Japanese and German hospitals before finally heading south to Xiamen. Amid this life-threatening upheaval, he began writing his memoirs. Think about it, in the face of danger, he didn't write manifestos or protest letters but instead recalled the crickets and mulberries in his childhood backyard. This act alone suggests something vital. Reminiscence isn't escapism. It's finding a rope to anchor oneself during the darkest times. When life feels unbearably harsh, one must return to their origins to reaffirm, who am I? Where did I come from? What shaped me into who I am today? Second, the brilliance of ordinary people. Lu Xun wrote extensively about prominent figures, yet the most touching aspects of Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk lie within its portrayal of common folk. Changma, an unnamed, uneducated, lowly nanny, achieved her greatest feat by buying a young boy a book. Mr. Fujino, a scruffy professor largely unnoticed in Japan's academic circles, achieved his by diligently correcting a Chinese student's notes. Are these deeds extraordinary? On the grand scale of history, they're barely significant. Yet, on the scale of a single life, they became pivotal moments of transformation. Changma's purchase of the Shanhaijing opened the door to a world of imagination for young Lu Xun, while Mr. Fujino's respect allowed him to experience humanity's purest kindness in a foreign land. The seeds sown by these ordinary individuals eventually led Lu Xun to become who he was. In our own lives, don't we also have Changma's and Mr. Fujino's? People whose seemingly insignificant gestures later reveal themselves as our most cherished memories? Third, honesty in recollection. You'll notice something unique as you read Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk. Lu Xun never romanticizes his memories. He writes about Changma's kindness but also her annoyance, the joys of Baichao Garden but also the tediousness of Sanwei study, his anger at quack doctors but also his guilt and confusion at being made to shout "Father" during his father's final moments. As the essay ends, Lu Xun recounts how his father was peaceful on his deathbed until a woman named Mrs. Yen insisted he shout loudly, causing his father to pass away painfully. Even into adulthood, Lu Xun considered this the gravest mistake I ever committed against my father. He doesn't depict himself as a flawless son or romanticize pain. Instead, he candidly portrays a child's helplessness in confronting death. Such honesty is incredibly rare in memoir writing. Many people either immerse themselves in nostalgia, painting everything in golden hues, or wallow in resentment, blaming all their misfortunes on others. Lusun does neither. He revisits the past with a clear yet tender gaze, seeing warmth while acknowledging absurdity, feeling love while recognizing harm. This is the profound meaning behind morning blossoms plucked at dusk, flowers picked in the dusk of one's life, having lost their freshness and brightness, yet precisely because of the passage of time, revealing their true texture. Therefore, Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk isn't a book about nostalgia, it's a book about reconciliation. A middle-aged man amidst the chaos of war reflects on his journey, not to dwell on the past's beauty, but to uncover a strength within his memories that will guide him through the harsh realities ahead. The cricket sounds in Baichao Garden, Changma's Shanheijing Mr. Fujino's corrected notes, they aren't lost shadows but faint lights sustaining a soul through the dark night. I'd like to share a few lines from the book that resonated deeply with me. First, at times, I've often recalled the fruits and vegetables from my childhood hometown, water caltrops, lohan beans, wild rice stems, and cantaloupes. All of these are incredibly fresh and delicious. All of these have lured me toward homesickness. You see, Lu Sun's way of expressing nostalgia isn't through landscapes or scenery but through flavors. Water caltrops, lohan beans, wild rice stems, cantaloupes, all tangible, rooted in the earth. Because taste is the most genuine memory. That moment in a foreign land when you catch a familiar scent, all your longing rushes forth in an instant. This isn't literary embellishment, it's real human experience. Second, when a person's life has been reduced to nothing but memories, their existence is bound to feel boring, yet at times, they may even lack memory itself. At first, this line seems ordinary, yet deeper contemplation reveals profound bleakness. To rely solely on memories is lonely enough, but having no memories at all? That's sheer emptiness. When Lu Sun wrote this line, he must have been experiencing profound isolation, expressing the heaviest feeling in the lightest tone. There's one quote not from the text but an insight I've distilled from the entire book. The acts of kindness we regard as insignificant often become someone else's warmest memory. Changma probably never realized that the Shanheijing she bought for just a few cents left such a deep imprint in a child's heart. This, perhaps, is the simplest lesson from Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk. You can never predict how a casual act of kindness might illuminate another person's life. At last, let's return to the title of this book. Morning Blossoms Plucked at Dusk. The imagery is stunning yet authentic. Aren't we all doing the same thing? Using the eyes of adulthood to revisit and reinterpret the people and events from our youth that we didn't fully understand at the time? As children, we found Changma annoying. As adults, we realize her kindness. As children, we resented our father for making us study during our happiest moments. As adults, we understand the clumsy expectations behind it. As children, we took everything beautiful for granted. As adults, we see those carefree afternoons in Baichao Garden as the most luxurious moments of our lives. Amid his darkest days, Lu Sun looked back and found the strength to move forward. Maybe we can occasionally pause and pick up those dusty blossoms buried deep in our memories, not to indulge in nostalgia, but to understand the people and moments that shaped who we are today. How about you? In your memories, is there someone like Changma who did something seemingly insignificant that later became a source of warmth for a long, long time? That's all for this episode. No matter when you're listening, I wish you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Delusion. See you next time.